Howdy y'all, you got the Bulldog on the channel. This truck come in, it had a couple, 3 other problems that we've addressed, but this one here, he thought there might be something wrong with it, but he's got to cool his camper. Why don't you take a look at it? Yeah, it needs to be fixed. What we got going on is that U-joint right there. It's about ready to leave the chat. That was the clunk. The vibration is the center support bearing underneath there, and you'll see it after I get it apart. It's sloppy. We got to do all the U-joints, you know, since we got to have the prop shaft out anyway. We usually look at them and do all of them. Sometimes we'll do just the one that it absolutely needs, but a lot of times we'll take it apart and find others bad. So since the center support bearing is vibrating and flopping like it is, a lot of times a bad U-joint up there being seized will cause that to go out. So we always kind of count on doing that. Step 1 when you're doing this job is block the wheels. Cat tacks. Flat ground, it's not a huge deal. If you've got a sloped driveway, it'd be a good idea to use a wedge block or something like that, or, you know, meet Jesus, one of the two. I've got to take this thing all apart before we even order parts, because there's 6 different carrier bearings. Diameter, distance between the surface and the center line of the shaft, which is kind of crazy because it's an extra 1/2 inch right now. Since it's hanging down, you can pick up and down on the shaft like this. How are you supposed to measure that? I hope there's a big difference in them. Maybe we'll be able to tell. Let's get after it. Now, the rear yoke on this one has got 5/16 or 8mm bolts, whichever you want to call them, 6-point. They're not too bad. Yeah, every once in a while you find them stuck and you have to work on them a little bit. I think that's going to be a 15mm. And these here are the infamous 12-12, 12mm, 12-point, and they usually are pretty in there, but you know, we'll get it out. I usually break these loose with a wrench first. Oh God! Oh, well, this job is starting out really well. I bought this crazy 18-inch, 1/4-inch drive ratchet like a decade ago, and I've used it like 4 or 5 times. Oh God. Oh. It's the only thing small enough to fit. 6-point socket, of course, but kind of meaningless when you can just stretch the socket out. You'll go around it. I don't know if I can get my 3/8 in there or not. Vacuum top one's off quite a bit. I might be able to pop it out of there and drop it out. Wanted around. Going hard all the way. Yeah, it's not on the hole. Can't get it on there perfectly straight. I'm gonna have to take it all the way out. Yeah, there, I got it turned around. Now, I'll show you the easiest way I have to pop these U-joints. Big old pry bar. Okay, it fell out. Well, that was anticlimactic. I wanted to show you in the video how I did it. I'm supposed to look amazing. It's not supposed to fall apart like that. Alright, well, let's get after the front one. You want to take the front one loose before you take the center support loose. Again, I try to break it loose with a wrench first. Oh! Come on. By any means necessary. Okay, that one's going to be up there. Alright, can you see what I'm doing? I knocked you over. Figures. I'm going to kick it neutral and turn it over. Something else we're going to do before this truck leaves is check the shifter, because it's sloppy. When you go to take this last bolt out, be sure you have your face right up into it so you can fall over and bust you in the nose. The shaft doesn't feel very bad. I don't know, we'll see. Kidding me? Okay, it's either 14 or 9/16. God dang. In literally all of my videos, I've had people asking, what size is this bolt? I don't know. It is what it is. because once it leaves the factory, people can change it. That is 14 millimeter. Maybe it was supposed to be 9/16 and it rusted down. Yeah, it was supposed to be 9/16. This is a 2000 some truck, and it's got standard bolts still on it. How do you get it down out? How do you get it down out of there when you're done? Gravity helps. Oh. Now, you want to... Alright, I was going to say mark the drive shaft so that it goes back exactly like it was. But, again, I find things. You see how this dog bone is sitting there? I'll try to get this lined up. Come on. This one is sitting perfectly flat, and this one is sitting cattywampus. That's going to cause a vibration. That will knock out your center support bearing. So whoever did the U-joints last put it back together wrong. And that's why we're doing this now. So I'm not going to mark this. Now I am still going to mark the shafts to each other. I don't know if they're right, because whoever did that did those. So, but anyway, I'm going to put it back like it was. Chalk marks will rub off and then you're going to be wondering. So I just take and make a little nick in it. Gravity. Just like that. Now we know where it was to begin with. I'll put it back like it was, but I'll line up that dog bone with the other one when it goes back together. Now we're going to have to remove this boot here, and I've had this pick, this heavy duty pick. I don't know what it's called. It's just a big heavy duty pick. I stick it in there and pop that off, and then you can straighten it out and reuse it. We'll slide this shaft off. Now we'll check it up in the vise and see if we can get this off here. Now, just to let you know, we're up on O'Reilly's website right now. Cat tax. We're up on O'Reilly's website now, and people that want to price a job over the phone, have you order the parts ahead of time. You know, they can only leave the vehicle for that day. Here's all the choices. The same truck. Most of these are the same brand, Precision. So, which one is it? You got to take it apart to find out. I got to get the bearing ID, but these down here are asking me for the bearing center line to mounting surface, which is kind of difficult to get whenever the center's beat out of it. But I will try to get a rough measurement. You shouldn't be able to do that. This is all ripped out. Now what I'm going to do is angle in here with my air hammer and see if I can get onto the bearing and vibrate it off. That is the ideal condition. That's a retainer. Now we even have the entire thing kind of in one piece. It's got a metal shield here that I destroyed, but that's why we're taking it apart, just to replace it. Now we just need the shaft diameter. I must have been driving on it, so I'll have to dress that a little bit. Was that me? Yeah, it was me. Okay, though. There. Now we'll get this measurement. We'll see if we can get the right part now. Shaft diameter 1.585. So we'll see what the options are. All right. Now just what do you want, fat boy? Here. 1.5748. That's probably it. Plate without studs. With short rubber extension. .378, 2.4790 to mounting surface. Doesn't look like it at all. .77, 1.9, 2.3. Okay. 1/4 inch. Bearing mounting surface 1.5. I don't quite look like it. Now imagine if this rubber was completely destroyed, which happens a lot, and you don't have it there to look for. Isn't this all the same one? So they got the same one listed like 3 times in this line. Why? Why? I think it's this one right here, 60153. Yeah. Maybe this is backwards. Backwards. Okay. 60153. 60153. In network. Have it tomorrow. 1.5748. Bearing ID, which is, really close. Looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different shaft diameters, 2 different center lines. short rubber rear extension. We've got a plate there. See if that's part of the secondary plate that it comes with is still on the shaft, so I can just replace that. And this other one's a retainer, so this is the right one. You have to just sit here and go through them and look at them. Tell by the pictures, go by the specifications, and if you don't have that, you're kind of screwed. That's why we have to have the vehicle here to do anything. We have to actually disassemble it to find out what they did at the factory. They cannot tell you anything with the VIN number because they didn't record what they did for each VIN number. It's too much trouble. Now, a lot of this is just because we're getting an aftermarket. It would narrow it down greatly if we were getting it from the dealer, but why would the dealer carry this stuff? They don't keep stuff for older vehicles. There's no reason to. I'll get it ordered and have it here tomorrow. Okay, we're changing the U-joints here, and people will ask, well, if one of them was all it was bad, why are you replacing all of them? Well, here's this one that was probably done at the same time that that one was. It's got slack in it. That one there might or might not have ever been done. That's why we tend to do them all. We know which ones were done, when it was done, and you just keep everything straight that way. Now, you can watch while I do this one here. They all work about the same, except for that one I've already put in because you only have to do half of it. First off, we got to get all these rings out of here. You might or might not need a whole assortment of tools to do that. Okay, we've got our mark so that this will go back the same way it was. It's lined up. Yeah, focus there. We'll show this. So that looks bad. That looks very bad. That's why we change it. I go too far one way, which you can go back the other way. Now, as you come apart, clean things up. Make sure pushing that out didn't burr that. That's good. When you're pressing with this great big C-clamp, you're pressing against this one only. This one is going to want to bend. That's why I put a little tension on it. And then I smack it with a hammer. Do that until it starts to move a lot easier. That way it doesn't put nearly as much stress on this bone here. There's rarely a tool that'll ever do the job 100% of the time. You end up going back and forth between all your tools, using different combinations to make them work. Okay, usually when you see it twist sideways just a little bit, you can stop because it's hit right here. If you keep pushing, you might damage the yoke. Joint. We're using these Neepco joints. They quit carrying Spicer. No parts store in town carries Spicer anymore. The machine shop had these, so I figured they would know that these are decent. Hopefully they are. They cost just a smidge amount more than Spicer did, but not substantially more than the parts store. We go with these because the regular store bought joints that you get nowadays, it's about a 50-50 shot whether they actually fit or not. They're the correct application, and when you measure it, a lot of times you can't tell the difference. But when you're installing the joint, after you get done, after you neutralize the joint, it still is tight one direction and not the other. Sometimes both directions are tight. I have found across this portion right here to be off center, cast off center. You know, the whole thing will be perfectly square, but this round portion right here will be off to one side a little bit. That's going to cause a vibration. We run into problems constantly because we're the ones that do it every day. The machine shop probably does this more often than we do. Now, when you're setting this joint, make sure if your joint is greasable, the grease zerk goes towards the shaft, not towards the outside yoke or anything like that. Always goes towards the shaft, because this portion, there's always going to be more room. And even on the one that has no other yoke, there's nothing on the other side of it. Well, that is until you install it. And then the rear end yoke is in the way. So this is how you put it in. Grease zerk towards the main shaft. Don't forget, like I was about to do, to lube it. Lubricant makes everything go better. You can use oil, you can use gun grease. I use STP, because after you pour this in, you just can't get it all out of the bottle. So I just set the bottle like that, and then stick my finger in there and wipe a little bit, get a little bit on my fingers, rub it around. That almost goes too easy. Now you saw me take it apart with an impact. I go together with a ratchet. It shouldn't go that hard. It shouldn't go too easy, but it shouldn't go that hard. When I install, I go past the center line. That way you don't run the risk of knocking a bearing over. It's got little needle bearings all the way around it, and they're loose. If you get a needle bearing dislodged and it falls down, it'll be laying on top in here, and then nothing will fit correctly. Once you get one side ready, you want to go ahead and put in one of your clips. Make sure it's seated correctly. Now this one will go in a little bit more difficult, but still, it should not be terrible. When you feel it hit, since it's just a freckle, and I tap it. Just to neutralize everything. You wonder why everything is always covered in stuff. Well, you run out of room real quick when you're working. Doesn't matter how many tables you have sitting around. That feels pretty good. You always still want to take right here on the yoke. A little tap. That should be all it takes. If it's just a little bit stiff, tapping it like that should free it up. Now, our mark right here, let's turn it straight forward. cups. Lube up our yoke. Find our mark on the yoke, right there. Yikes. You notice I push on past center quite a bit. It helps keep everything straight. And I don't put it in the vise very tight. These drive shafts are hollow. Get started. Get ready, stop, back up, put your clip in. Lift in. Should see it in the groove correctly. It doesn't feel bad at all. Give it a tap. Now we'll install our grease cert. Come on. They're straight. And grease it. You see grease coming out of one cap. There we go. All right. Now, you might see or hear somewhere else where they're talking about it matters where you put the grease cert. 99% of the time, it doesn't. It matters where you point it so that you can grease it later on. These things, that's part of the reason why this thing was dry. It's hard to get to. So people just don't grease them anymore, and it was dry and it wore out the bearings. But under heavy applications, since this joint is cross-drilled and hollow, it can cause problems. But like I say, 99% of the time, it will not matter. You're talking about this thing under load, trying to turn a certain direction. You want that one to be under compression rather than under stretch. People that say that, they're not particularly wrong, but it's not going to matter for you working on something in your own driveway. The last one we do will be the exact same thing. Okay, now we've got our new part finally. I've already installed this shield right here, because the old one's a little bit bent up. Now our carrier bearing is going to mount with this flat portion towards the shaft. Put it on here. Let's lube this up a little bit. Now I want to find, I've got a pipe here that just barely fits over the shaft. It does not fit down inside that though. I'm going to have to put our new lock on this and drive on that, which adds a little bit, but it shouldn't go very hard. Uh-oh. Yeah, it's this keeper. Let's pull that off first. That's just to keep the rubber into the metal framework. It's still rubbing. It's not good. Turning it around. This is the way it was in there before, so we're going to have to install it like this, which is honestly not a big deal. And you'll find that with a lot of aftermarket parts. They don't quite fit. But let's get the shaft put back on here and we'll go back together. Alright, this dog bone is straight up and down, so we're going to want to line it up perfectly with this dog bone. Do this without knocking everything over. There. Looks like it. Now, I'll find my keeper here and put it back on. It's just, been crimped. We'll take and bend this, bend this. Now, we'll put it back on there and crimp it. Now, these are the special crimping pliers that we used to use back in the 80s and 90s to put CD boots on. Turn that over. Get the hook. That's popping out. Come on. There we go. Doesn't take much. We're not, holding the whole truck up off the ground with it. It just is to hold out the dirt. Now we got to install back in the truck. And we're going to get bolts in this front yoke first. Now's when gravity's not your friend. We should try to get one bolt started. I'm gonna end up bumping the camera no matter where I put it. You're not going to tighten that, you're just going to run it down. Get the other two started. Down a little bit, and then we'll tighten the bottom ones. Tighten 3 of them. See if I can tighten that 4th. Gets the exhaust, gets the yoke a little bit. Tight. Okay. Now we'll hook up the center support. Once again, gravity is not your friend here. Okay. We've got a little bit of movement. Put it in the middle. Alright, I've got this thing kicked into neutral so that I can rotate the shaft and get it lined up again. I've got tape wrapped around it so that I don't lose the caps. They shouldn't fly, but a lot of times things happen. All right. We took one bolt clear out. Preferably you don't pull them in with the bolts. We're just going to snug for now. Just to make sure everything's seated. All right. Okay, now we're going to take it out for a test drive. There's something I got to check first because this is a Ford truck. The shifter feels sloppy, so I'm going to check the gear shift to make sure it's not about ready to fly apart. The itself isn't bad. The bushings on the tube are shot, so it's a long ways from its heart. At least it's not going to fall apart at his feet and not be able to work at all. So we're going to go out for a test drive. All right, test drive went well. No more vibration, no more clunk going down the road. What he was feeling was you step on it a little bit and then let out of it, and then when you step on it again, it clunked. We were wondering if that was the torque converter or something like that. Well, no, it was the rear U-joint. I've seen worse. I've seen worse. He wasn't going to fly apart until he hooked his camper to it and took off on his vacation. That's when it would have flown apart. That was the whole point of getting everything fixed right now. So he's good to go. So like, comment, subscribe, hit your little bell notification, share it all around. We'll talk to you later.